Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Andrew Donovan. It's the season of giving, and did you know there are actually experts in giving and philanthropy? Joining me now is one of them, Meg George, a locally raised philanthropy consultant, speaker, and author, and a classmate of mine for many, many years. Welcome. First of all, thank you for joining me on Newsmakers.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you. People should know that of all the people I've interviewed, you might be the one I've known longest. We went to kindergarten together.
That's right.
It was half days. Our day parts were different, but then once in a while they'd merge the classes. And then we went right through to high school together.
It's amazing. I told my children this morning I'm seeing the oldest, longest friend that I have.
Wow. I hope I'm not that old, but I know what you mean. I'll take it. I'll take it. So yeah, we went to Whitesboro High School, graduated in 2008, and then after high school, you went to Lemoyne College.
That's right.
And this kind of philanthropy bug bit you.
Yes.
Take me through, in college, what you noticed about this industry and what attracted you to it.
No one really goes to school for philanthropy. There's not a big education sector that is focused on generosity. So I earned a French degree and had no real plan for what I was going to do with that.
We went to France together in high school. Yeah, we took French and went to France together. So you went to college for French.
I did. I ended up spending a lot more time in France. And I, at some point in my college journey, had learned that there were people who were giving very specific scholarships to students who, of course, they didn't know. And this one gentleman had started a French scholarship in honor of his late wife. And they asked the students who were scholarship recipients if we wanted to come meet our donors. So one night I went in my Ugg boots and my fleece jacket and met this stranger who was so kind and warm and obviously generous. And it actually changed my life. I realized that people were giving of themselves for people who they didn't even know. And I thought it was incredible. And after I graduated, the advancement office at my alma mater, Lemoyne, had a job open for someone who didn't need to have any experience. They were about to embark on this business school campaign. These were all words I knew nothing about, fundraising, philanthropy, so I stayed on. I took the job and I learned everything that I really could about life and fell in love with the work.
How do you morph that into a career? You took a job at Lemoyne right after graduating, and then from there, what was your journey like?
When you take a job in fundraising, there are different ways that you can be a part of a team that all works collectively towards a goal, but in extremely different areas of expertise. And mine was in meeting people face to face, having conversations like we're having, and really learning as much as I could about their values and their philanthropic priorities. I learned so much about careers and skill sets and family values, and I was flying to places I had never visited alone, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and I realized that I wanted to know about these people and that asking them for money didn't feel as taboo or awkward as I thought it would. So really, once you have this ability to be, I would say, an excellent conversationalist, the job feels kind of easy and fun and interesting. So I went on to do the same kind of work at other institutions, and at all of these institutions, they're hiring consultants because ultimately they want to raise big chunks of money, and those are during things called campaigns. And during campaigns, when you have an advisor or a consultant helping you plan for it and strategize on making solicitations and working towards the goal, you really have a partner. And I realized, and so did my now husband at the time, that we both wanted to be those partners, those advisors. So ultimately, after having gotten enough experience in the field, we left our jobs and started a group to be those consultants together.
And it's your last name, right?
It is. It's my last name.
The George Group.
George Philanthropy Group.
George Philanthropy Group.
That's right.
And so, okay, now you're consultants, you're married to your business partner. How do you turn this into this incredible company?
We started like everyone else with the business, with 1 or 2 clients, and then growing methodically, but also creatively along the way. So now we're almost 11 years, we're about 11 years into this business. And I would say that it started small, but with constantly pushing ourselves to think boldly. So everything about growing a business is asking, can this scale? Is this creative? Does this fulfill me? Does this create a lifestyle? Do I make money doing this? So having someone who you're married to, you parent with, and you do business with makes for a lot of conversations about visioning and really imagining where you want this thing to go. But I would say in the industry of philanthropy, it's so easy in that everyone always needs to raise more money. Like, the problems are endless in this world and in our country. So if you're a nonprofit and you're trying to solve a problem, 9 times out of 10, you know what the solution could be, but you're lacking funding. So we're always pitching business or meeting people who have a need for our services because it's endless.
So you started this business, you started small, but now you travel all over the country and have employees in other places. Yeah. How did you grow this into a national organization?
We needed to find the other cities and towns that had a deficit in philanthropy advisories, because there are nonprofits in all cities around the country, but not every city has a deep philanthropic culture. And if you go to some place like Boston or New York City, a lot of these organizations, they are storied. They know what they're doing, there is a legacy, and they have a lot of philanthropists who are extremely loyal to them. But we started to break into other parts of the country and find, hey, we could travel here. We actually like spending time here, places like South Florida, for example, and they don't have huge philanthropy consulting firms. And in fact, they're very hungry. There's an appetite here for going into campaigns and having a really tremendous culture of philanthropy. So we started to travel to places to find where they needed more help and the help there wasn't obvious, and just grew city to city, referral to referral, and started being really intentional and proactive to find business in the places where we wanted to, or where we saw organizations who seemed like a great cultural fit for us.
All right, well, it's a great journey. We'll continue talking about your journey. She's written a book. We'll talk about the book. A lot more to get to with Meg George when Newsmakers continues. Newsmakers is back. Our guest this weekend is Meg George of the George Philanthropy Group, a longtime classmate of mine who's gone on to an amazing career teaching people how to give and how to receive gifts for different nonprofits and different institutions. Meg, thanks for being here. I still call you Megan, which is your long formal name that I knew, but you've shortened it in your professional life, so it's tough for me to get used to. We talked a moment ago about you developing your business in places that maybe don't have as deep of philanthropic cultures as some other cities. Where do you put Syracuse and Central New York on that list?
Syracuse, Central New York, these are places that have extremely loyal donors, and what I find is that there are families with multiple generations where the grandparents, the parents have now taught their children and their grandchildren how to be really deliberate with giving. And I think the root of that, especially in Syracuse, has been always take care of your neighbors. Be a good community member, make sure that your community can thrive. So we have a lot of what we would call community-based nonprofits in Central New York, and people stick with them through the end, which you don't always see in other places. And this is different by generation and even by gender too. But what I appreciate very much here is that if you give to a certain nonprofit, you stick with it and you ask them good questions and you stay in touch with them and you know the other donors to them. So we have clients that we've always worked with here, even though we've gone to other parts of the country. We have employees who live here in Syracuse, and I think that they too really appreciate the easiness kind of the work, like the way that people engage so enthusiastically about making sure their cause, their nonprofit does really well.
What do you see about the future of philanthropy in Syracuse? Is there room for it to grow?
There is always going to be room all across America for philanthropy to grow. There's going to be space and opportunities for philanthropy to get even more focused than it is. Assessing pretty regularly that we don't have nonprofits who are duplicating services is really important. No families should feel like they're spreading their money a mile wide and an inch deep, for example. So the fewer nonprofits that we have, but in a really focused way with programs that are scaffolded and make sure that they tackle everything that we find as a challenge is really important. So you can look to some institutions that have been around a long time, like the Community Foundation or the Allen Foundation, for example, and you can see the places where they've invested money, and then you can kind of follow suit, because there are only going to be greater needs. We're always going to need more money to solve problems. But the more intentional that we get on swimming upstream, if you will, and getting to the root of the problems in Syracuse will be really critical to solving the problems at scale and a little bit more quickly.
You're the expert, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like giving has been somewhat supercharged at the end of this year as the federal government shut down, as SNAP seemed to be in jeopardy for some people. There seemed to be a lot of requests for donations, whether it's actual food, but of course money always goes a little further.
Right.
Have you seen that this year, that right now it seems like be a height of giving?
At the end of any calendar year, you're going to feel that way. It's just particularly strong right now because we have had things that feel like a crisis. So when crises happen in America, our generosity response is very strong. We see that with fires, with COVID, with food in this case. People actually want to feel like they're helping someone really specific with a tangible need. And it's why online, these crowdfunding, crowdsourcing kind of platforms have gotten so much momentum, because the idea that you're helping someone who is your brother's neighbor, for example, is so enticing. So yes, I would say that each year we're seeing an increase in giving. Over $592 billion was given away last year. I bet we'll beat that this year. We won't know that until probably the middle of June. But it just feels heightened when something is wrong, because people do show up. And guess what's hard about tracking that is that a lot of people show up with what they can do. That might mean $25 or $50, and you need a whole lot of people to solve multi-million-dollar problems at those size gifts. But we're still relying pretty heavily on, let's say, relatively speaking, fewer people or fewer families to fund a lot of things that go on. So it's tricky data to track.
One thing that I really want to focus on in having you here is how everybody can give something.
Yeah.
You know, you work often for big institutions and with big donors who give more money than most people will see in a day. But I want to talk about how giving can be for everyone. Philanthropy and spirit can be for everyone.
Yeah.
How do you bridge that gap or shift your narrative when you're not talking to a millionaire?
So there are different ways to be philanthropic. We think automatically of giving away money, and we equate that with people who are uber wealthy and even famous. But the truth is that people who give away their things and people who give away their time are also philanthropists. So we have to celebrate the fact that if you go to cook someone a meal, or you go to clean up a space that is used in your community, that's an act of philanthropy. That's an act of generosity. And if you sit down with your children and you go through all of the toys and all of the books and the things, and you find a home for those where another child does not have those things, that's also an act of philanthropy. So sometimes we talk to kids or families, adults even, about giving away the things that you don't use anymore. Your jacket doesn't fit you. But it's also about saying, my gosh, we have 4 jackets, and there's probably a lot more than 3 kids in Syracuse who have none. So how can we connect what we have to make sure that things just feel a little bit more fair, a little bit more equitable? That's how I explain it to my kids. And I think it's really easy to grasp this idea of giving of ourselves when it comes to time or things if we don't have the money. But I would love to emphasize and celebrate today that giving a gift of money of any amount really matters. I just said a moment ago how it takes a whole lot of $20 gifts to get to millions of dollars. But the truth is, adding up all of those gifts does something. And if you think of a need that we have in Central New York, and you think, my gosh, if they just had $1,000, they could feed this person or do this thing. Those gifts of $5 and $10 from all of the people who are very motivated and inspired by that can absolutely add up to $1,000 and solve that problem. So there are multiple ways, I think, at any budget level, or no matter how busy you are, to contribute something.
All right, we'll take another break. Meg has put all of this in a book for children. We'll talk about that book when Newsmakers continues. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Meg George is my guest. She's a locally raised, specifically Whitesboro and Oneida County raised philanthropy consultant, speaker, and now author. So Meg has brought another guest via book with her. That guest is Philomena, because she's your character. Tell us about your book.
This is What's Philanthropy to Philomena. It's a children's book that follows a day in the life of this young girl, Philomena. She's learning about this tricky word, philanthropy, which feels a little intimidating, and finds through a series of actions and conversations with her family that it's actually a wonderful thing to engage in. It makes her feel really good. She comes to understand it, and she feels inspired to even spread it to others. So I think it's a great tool for children who are just starting to get curious about what it could mean to be generous.
I don't want you to give away any endings, but what is perhaps confusing about philanthropy to Philomena at first, and what does she ultimately learn in the end?
Philomena's very confused as to why there would be this huge word that sounds like her name, but that she's never heard of before. And actually, her dad is using this word on the phone, which is something my children can relate to. And ultimately, what she is most worried about is that she's too young and too little to make the world a better place. And what she realizes through giving away some things and even realizing she's been a philanthropist all along is that she's not too little, and no one is. Everyone can do their part.
What would you say, as Philomena grows up, what lessons could she teach to adults, but also to younger children?
It's amazing, actually, how energized children are about giving back. So it teaches me a lesson all of the time, that children are born with this amazing curiosity. And they truly do want to make the world better. So if they're given the tools and the space to actually think about what the problems are and how we can solve them, I think that teaches adults a whole lot. It's like as soon as we show children that there's something wrong, they want to know why, and they want to help being a part of solving it. So I like the idea of lighting this match and seeing the way that their brains think, because as adults, we have all of these other things to worry about and think about and stress over. And a lot of kids don't have that yet. So they're able to think a little bit more freely about how things can feel fair and how they could play a part in that.
I really wanted to have this conversation with you during the holiday season because this really is the season of giving. What kind of philanthropic advice do you give to people this time of year?
I usually say that if you plan to give away a monetary donation to an organization, first of all, try to think of what your budget for that will be and what impact you want to have. Because if we consider what outcomes we want to drive, we can make the best decision about giving away our money. But if you're going to involve your children in that, go ahead and start having the conversation with them. I like to make sure that I give my money to 1 or 2 places only so that they can do the most with it that they can. It's not to say I won't swing next year to the other causes that look fantastic and that I care about, but when we focus our energy and focus our money in one way, we can drive the greatest impact. So I tell my children every year, let's decide, let's vote on one place, and I present them with 3 choices. And they're things that they would care about, like my daughter is an animal lover. My son really cares about other children being healthy, for example. So we talk about what these organizations do, what they need, why would they need philanthropy, right? What a concept for children to grapple with. And then we vote as a family and we pool our money. So I'll tell them how much I plan to give, and I tell them you have to give something, even if it's $1. They're always so excited by the end, it's more than $1, but they're pulling from their birthday money or chores or even Christmas money that they've saved from last year. So I think involving kids and then making a really considerate kind of effort and limiting it to a place feels really good. Also coupling that with spending time anywhere that will have you for an hour or 2. It's the thing that my kids now ask to do and they look forward to, because there's nothing quite like seeing the need in action and being part of the solution. Money is interesting, right? The idea of parting with it feels really strange, but also spending your time and seeing that someone isn't as fortunate as you can't really put a price on that experience to just invoke compassion, which leads to gratitude, and all of those feelings are really cyclical with inspiring philanthropy.
Did the vote happen yet, where the money's going?
No, but we have our 3 places picked out, so I told my kids that I want to do it right after Thanksgiving.
Well, I kind of want to push you on what the 3 are, but I also don't want to give false hope to the 2 that don't ultimately win. So
that's why I never share it.
Okay, you don't share it. Okay. Well, all right, we'll take another break and have a final word with Meg and a final word from Newsmakers after this. We have a few moments left with Meg George, a philanthropy consultant, speaker, author, so many things, longtime friend of mine. Let's give people something they can take away from this conversation briefly.
Yeah.
How do you budget philanthropy into your budget if you don't have a lot of money?
Do not overthink it. Do not overcomplicate it. Don't imagine that you need to have thousands and millions of dollars in order to be impactful. Take whatever it is. If it's $20, plan for that before December 31st. That's when organizations need it the most. Choose one place and maybe even look for the places that are doubling gifts, seeing those gift challenges where they can match a gift, because that means that your gift goes from $20 to $40, or if it's twice matched, even greater to $80. So look for the places that are maximizing gifts that need something really specific, and think about an amount of money that feels like you have to think about it for a second, but it still feels really good for you.
We've learned a lot from you today, and I want people to continue learning from you and from Philomena.
Thank you.
If people want your book, where can they find it?
Right on my website, megtgeorge.com. It's also available on Amazon online, but if you are shopping around central New York this holiday season, check out the Most Museum gift shop, which carries it, as well as 20 East, which is an amazing gift shop in Cazenovia, New York.
Wow, so you're in some cool stores.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Really good to see you. One of my longest time friends, literally on the planet. Thank you for being here. Happy holidays. For all the hardworking people of News Channel 9, have a great weekend.
Join News Channel 9 for A Christmas Wish and help us support the rescue mission. A movie with a mission this Sunday at noon on News Channel 9 and WSYR Plus.